Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 205th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We're starting out with about 33 people, and I'm not sure we should say celebrate. We're commemorating January 6th, 2020, the last time a new president came into the White House. At that time, it was Joe Biden, bringing in Kamala Harris with him, the first female vice president of the United States. And now we are 4 years later. Donald Trump has been duly chosen by the Electoral College and certified, and he will be the president starting January 20th, exactly 2 weeks from today. But as we recall, 4 years ago today, a mob descended on the White House, or ascended because they came from bottom as opposed to top, and a number of people wound up dead. And for 4 years, we've been hearing about the January 6th. January 6th itself has become an identifiable term to describe what happened 4 years ago. I know you out in Radio Land can't see this, but Steve, can you flash, please, what Washington, D.C. looks like today, which is freezing cold and covered in snow, serious snow. I lived in D.C. I never saw snow. But if this had been the weather 4 years ago, I'm sure nothing like what happened January 6th, 4 years ago, would have happened. D.C. is really cold. And there you go. I know you can't see it on the radio, but DC is just blanketed. This is a snowstorm. It looks like an active snowstorm. It's still snowing there. If this had been the weather 4 years ago, the world would have been a very different place. And anybody who had been contemplating demonstrating today in Washington, D.C., based on the 14th Amendment and all that stuff, this would not have happened. Oh my God, look at that! So here we are now, 4 years later. The idea that Donald Trump would return to the White House is 2 weeks away from becoming a reality. Let's put it that way. And Kamala Harris has been presiding over the I won't call them festivities, over the process here. As vice president, she is, of course, president of the Senate, of the Congress, and is referred to as Madam President. And they are referring to her as Madam President as this thing proceeds, as the Electoral College votes are certified. She is making a big case of having not challenged this election, even though those of us in this community, we have Susan Pinchon with us and also Ray Lutz, who have been instrumental in trying to deal with the shortcomings of this election. Here we are. We had we have discussed at great length on previous calls the fact that the 14th Amendment calls for a ban on any insurrectionist holding federal office, and we had some really good people put in a lot of time on that. And people will be discussing that. I think Steve Spitz will discuss that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. We want to come back to it. But the first thing I want to do is with Tatanka Bricker here, and I know he's got to leave, is to discuss the ongoing situation with Leonard Peltier. I do want to welcome everybody, by the way. This is the first of our group calls for 2015, and we will be continuing through the year. We're going to continue to do our work on election protection, and we're also going to have a major focus on the environment. And next week, in the second hour, we will inaugurate the Environmental Programmers Network, which is going to be an ongoing coalition of environmental programmers to build our reach and to coordinate the coverage of the environment going on into the future. So that's going to upcome next week. Let's talk briefly now about the situation with Leonard Peltier. We have 14 days left with Joe Biden to have him God willing, pardon or commute or remand Leonard Peltier to his tribe. Tatanka Bricker, can you talk? You look like you're in a closet, Tatanka. Is that is that the case, or else a men's clothing store? Anyway, Tatanka, what's the latest on Leonard Peltier? Oh, you're
No,
muted. There you go. Now you're good. You're good.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No news from Lakota country, no news from Chase Iron Eyes or Takata Iron Eyes or Madonna Thunderhawk, and also no news from Adam Thunderface Villa Gomez. As I mentioned last week, I know there's a lot of ceremony going on this time of year around the winter solstice. And I did extend an invite for Chase to come on next week as well. To maybe we will have him at that time. Just keep the pressure up. The Leonard Peltier International Defense Committee. You can learn everything. Google that and just go on there. And if you haven't sent a letter, if you haven't sent an email, please do so. You can catch a lot of the history off that. Amnesty International is also deeply involved, and I don't think it's going to make. I'm not excited about this as a possibility, but we do have some people in conversation around Biden's visit with the Pope on the 10th. The Pope hasn't really weighed in heavily for Leonard, and in the present situation that he's in, I doubt that Biden is going to go out on a limb with the FBI. But as most people on this call, because we did have Chase on talk about those 2 years before Leonard and all the young Native Americans involved in the movement came out to witness what was happening. The organized assassination of 70 documented people, Lakota people think over 100, totally at the hands of the FBI. And that's what prompted AIM to come out at the request of the elders there. And so we heard that whole story on Harvey's Zoom call some time ago from Chase, and the fact that those people in the FBI responsible for that got rewarded for it heavily up to the top of their pyramid, and they've been followed by successors, and they just don't want anyone, I think, to know about that story, which mirrors a lot of our foreign policy with the CIA and the other three initial organizations that do that kind of dirty work all over the world. But I don't think probably the most people in the country know that has been the fate of Native people since the first colonization. So do whatever we can. We got 2 weeks, and we got 2 weeks. That's it.
Okay, so Amnesty International is circulating a petition. We are doing everything we possibly can. Tataga, you mentioned the Biden will be visiting the Pope. 2 weeks is a lifetime in politics, and we've got to do. It would be a horrible tragedy. I can't begin to say that if Biden fails to get him out, and we're down to the wire here, folks. So we will continue to do everything we can to pressure to get Leonard out. We did succeed, thank God, with Julian Assange. We're not today campaigning for Julian Assange to be free. He's in Australia. He's at a beach probably like the one behind me with his kids. We succeeded, and now we need to succeed for our sake, for Leonard's sake, and for Joe Biden's sake, for God's sakes, to get him out. I will say briefly now, I want to mention it, that Joe Biden did take extraordinary steps to make it more difficult for Donald Trump to continue offshore drilling. There's a very, very large number of acres of land that Biden has protected against drilling, offshore drilling, and he has taken steps to solidify that decision today. So I want to applaud him for that. We can't say that Joe Biden didn't accomplish anything in his last few weeks, but Leonard Peltier here is at the top. This is a nonpartisan attempt. The Pope himself has actually called for Leonard to be freed. And, the one thing we can say for certain about Leonard Peltier's imprisonment is he never had anything remotely resembling a fair trial. And, so, people come back and say, well, he killed two FBI agents. There's no evidence he did that. There's never been a fair trial. And even for the sake of the judicial system itself, he needs to get out. So there is legal precedent for remanding a human being who was convicted of murder in this country. He was a Canadian citizen, and the government remanded him to the custody of the Canadian government. There's no reason why Leonard Peltier can't be remanded to the custody of his tribe, and we need to keep the pressure on. I do not want to have to come on to this call on January 20th and say, oh, well, we failed. We were in this to win, and we're in this to get Leonard out, and that's what has to happen. Amila Reeson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Harvey, and thank you so much, Tatanka, for the update. And absolutely, we have to keep working. I just wanted to let people know, in case they were checking their ears and thought they had entered a time machine, that you did hear Harvey Wasserman say that we would continue these calls in 2015, and I'm sure Harvey meant to say 2025. So I just wanted to let people know that this is 2025, not 2015.
Well, we'll have a Twilight Zone edition for those of us in 2015, but 2025 is right.
And I would also like to welcome Hartzell Gray, who I just saw entered our Zoom meeting. Hartzell Gray, as you may know, is one of the leaders of the Progressive Democrats of America's youth wing. I don't exactly know the name. I think it's called YPDA, or Youth Progressive Democrats of America. At any rate,
Yes,
Hartzell has joined us.
YPDA.org.
Yeah. So anyway, Hartzell Gray, welcome.
Hartzell Gray, do you want to show yourself? And you can probably single-handedly lower the average age on this call by about 10 years. But Hartzell, we are talking about Leonard Peltier. We're all praying in this first 2025 edition of the Griep Calls that he gets out. And hi, Hartzell, how you doing?
Hey
Hello?
y'all. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What does your shirt say? I can't read that
So
label.
I'm here in the midst of Snowmageddon here in Kansas City, Missouri. And so I'm
Uh-huh.
actually I'm getting ready. I got my whole jumpsuit on here. I come from radio. And so one of the things about radio is that you have to do silly stuff like make a whole outfit. This is a street team wear. 96.5 The Buzz was my radio station, but it also makes for a really good outfit when you're stuck in 11 feet of snow.
11 feet?
We have 11 feet, friends.
11 feet of snow?
Yeah. Oh, no, Lord, 11 inches. 11,
Oh,
11
okay.
inches. That's why I say feet. Oh, that's so funny. But yes, we are here hunkered down, and I wanted to make sure I hop on the call because I love building power with my friends, and you all are my friends and my allies and my comrades, and we got a lot of work to do, especially today, January 6th. What a reminder of how much work that we always need to continue to fight, and that's what we're here for.
Well, listen, I got to say that for our people on the radio that like me, you have a great face for radio, but you would also do well on TV. You're wearing a beautiful red jumpsuit that says Cadillac on it. What is the meaning of that? Chadellac. What is that?
So that was in honor of our original promotions director here at the radio station I worked at. His name was Chad. He passed away, so we made stickers. It was actually his idea to do the whole jumpsuit stuff because you
All
wanted to
right.
be. It's radio, so you want people to when they see you out in the wild, they want to. Oh wow, those are the radio people. So we had the bright red jumpsuits, and so Chadillac, R.I.P. He helped us do silly stuff in radio.
All right. Well, we are forming, and you'll want to join us next week, and everybody else listening in next week, that second hour next week. We are going to inaugurate the Environmental Program Network. So
Amen.
bring together environmental programmers from all over the country to coordinate our
Amen.
efforts. And Okay, Hartzell, it's great
Well,
to
and
meet
if I can, I love you all. Thank you so much. And what I'll do, again, since I'm kind of running YPDA right now, I'll send you all in the
you.
chat
YPDA is Youth Progressive Democrats of America, right?
Young
Young
Progressive
Progressive.
Democrats of
Oh,
America. That's us.
okay.
And one of the things that we're going to do is have like a council of elders and just a council of wisdom. So we're going to have it's not just a bunch of young kids. We're going to have all of our folks are going to be invited to our meetings. We'll just have the young folks maybe be the ones leading the questions. But I'll drop actually our whole project. We're calling it Project YPDA 2025. And I will drop that in the chat. The website's still under construction, but it's got a place where you can join us. So that is active. And if you've got any young folks in your life, and I mean like 40 and under, if you got anybody you know that wants to build power with us as we built this thing, send them to the website and they'll get joined. And that email goes straight to me. So then we can circle back and reach out.
Hartzell, you're great. It's great to have you on. I mean, I turned 79 on December 31st, so I'm
So I'll
about
see you there, brother. I'll see you
well,
there.
am I too old to qualify to be on your
No,
website?
Sluggo, you could join twice.
Four times. I could join four times, for God's sakes.
But I'm actually really excited about that because that is one of the things that I think a lot of young orgs don't utilize enough. And that's the wisdom of our folks that come before us. You know, we've been doing this since '04 at PDA. And so, yeah, we definitely want our folks on those meetings with us. You can, just listen in and hear what we're talking about and how we're framing it. And we're going to have, like I said, maybe a once a quarter meeting with all of our elders to help us make sure we're doing this thing right.
Well, we can combine the your meeting with an AARP meeting, and we'll double our strength here. I got to
I'll
tell
bring
you,
the snacks. I'll bring the
now,
virtual cookies.
now that I'm 79, we had 71 people with us, by the way, and now that I'm 79,
Hey.
I have to say that wisdom is a word I have to search for. But Tatarka Bricka, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to thank Shadowlac for coming on, and yeah, you can contact me for that elders. That's an important thing that you're doing with PDA, and thinking about radio and the times that we're in. I just wanted, because I've got to go. I just wanted, and this isn't related necessarily to Leonard, although there's two things. There's a member of the Dolores Huerta family that has an app coming out that I think is going to be really helpful on the whole immigration thing. It has a way of, pre-programming anybody with a phone that can contact all the people you would want to know where you are when some live event is happening. You're witnessing somebody being taken by immigration, by whatever, and also keys into attorneys that you might and records everything. So anyway, that might be an interesting person to have on the show. And also Lee Felsenstein, who was the one nerd in the free speech movement back in the day in Berkeley, who knew how to fix bullhorns and everything. He went on to start much later something called Community Memory. He's a tech guy, and he was the one that called together the Homebrew Computer Club, where 27 Silicon Valley corporations came out, and where the Wozniak and Jobs, invented their first computer kind of together in that little motley group that lasted for 2 years, where they had no proprietary information. Everybody shared, and wonderful things happened. Anyway, he has developed a really low EMF, low signal texting device that can go undetected by other people, with a radius where people can communicate with each other without interference. So he would also be a really good person to have on
Okay.
talk about the use of radio in these days. So those two events, if you ever have a thing about radio and the times we're living in, and how to have confidential information among your team, and how to maybe prevent some of the worst
Absolutely, yeah.
that happen.
Okay, so citizen journalism. As I say, next week in the second hour, we'll be convening the inaugurating the environmental program. Thank you for coming on, Hearts, and thank you, Mila, for that referral. We are joined by Nicole Ung, among many others. Nicole, last week you mentioned a prisoner named Little John that you would like to have Joe Biden pardon. Do you want to come on to mention that person? And then we're going to go in and talk about the election protection issues that were cast aside a couple of hours ago with the certification of Donald Trump's alleged electoral victory. Nicole Ung, are you on with us? Yes, there
Uh,
you are. You
yes,
mentioned last week a prisoner that you are trying to get out with
yes,
pardon. Can you talk to him about that person very quickly, and then we'll move on.
yes. He is the person who he's kind of like a whistleblower, and he's the one that revealed to the press, all of Donald Trump's and all the billionaires' tax. Uh, I wasn't prepared
It's all right.
but
He was with the Internal Revenue Service. Is that correct?
yes, he was like a tax preparer, so he had access to do so to to the Internal Revenue files, and that's how he was able to get to the tax return of Trump. And
And so he was in prison for that. And what is his name?
Little John, Mr. Little John. I have to
Okay.
go.
So he needs to be added to the list of people that we're trying to get out
Yeah,
before. Okay. Obviously, if he released Donald Trump's tax returns, Donald Trump is not going to be inclined to let him out. So his name is Charles Littlejohn, and
yes,
he needs to be added to our prayers and our requests to Joe Biden to at least pardon or commute his sentence before he leaves office. Is that correct?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Steve Caruso has helpfully flashed on a letter about Charles Littlejohn. If there are other political prisoners that people want to mention that we want to try to get out, please mention them. We have 76 people with us, and we will be broadcast on Progressive Radio Network. There he is, Charles Littlejohn. He's 5 years in prison? Oh, my God.
Six, actually six.
Oh, my God. Well,
they
he's
they threw the book at him because he also uh, revealed all the tax the billionaires, Bezos and all of them.
he made public their tax record.
No, he gave him to the press.
Wow. And where is he being held? Do you know?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I have the email of like a law the official email from the law. I'm sorry, for the attorney, the
Yeah.
the federal attorney that we're supposed to write to directly.
All right. If you'll put that in the chat, that would be great.
I will, yeah. Thanks.
And maybe someone can read it, Mike, when it gets in the chat, if you'll read it so that our
Yes.
people in Radio Land can also hear it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike Hirsch, go ahead, please, Mike, and then Mara.
We also need to alert Biden to commute and forgive whatever's still hanging over Stephen Donziger's head. He's been a valiant advocate for the environment, and the only so-called crime he committed was winning a lawsuit against a huge oil company, which then manipulated
Chevron.
the process. Right, Chevron
Well, let's talk
manipulated the
about Steve.
process to crucify him, and he did literally nothing wrong. He did a lot of things that were right, and I guess, as they say, no good deed goes unpunished.
Well, let's talk about Steve Donziger for a minute. We've had him on. He's a very, very good friend of many of us, and a good. I know Dave Saltman, who's on with us, knows about his case. Steve Donziger represented the indigenous people in Peru. Is it Peru, Bolivia?
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Ecuador. There you go. Ecuador. He won a tremendous legal judgment against Chevron, which was horribly polluting the land,
The
jungle
Amazon.
land, the Amazon land of the native peoples, the indigenous peoples in Ecuador. It was a multi-billion-dollar judgment that he got from the Ecuadorian courts against Chevron. And Chevron retaliated against Steven Donziger by prosecuting him. Basically, the courts were just used as a tool by Chevron to attack the lawyer, Steve Donziger, who successfully won this judgment, this righteous judgment against Chevron. And they took away his law license. They put him under house arrest for absolutely no cause, except that he successfully won this lawsuit. And he is still unable to, his law license has been revoked, and he is still being terribly punished with zero credible legal grounds. It's astonishing. It puts Kafka to shame here, what they've done to Steve Donziger. And Joe Biden has not moved to pardon him at all. Milo, did you want to comment on that real quick?
I do. I want to talk about Donziger, and I also want to talk about Mumia Abu-Jamal. But
Okay.
about Donziger, I just like to say that his congressperson was the head of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler. And Jerry Nadler's son was an associate in a law firm that was representing Chevron in this case. And Nadler refused Donziger's entreaties for assistance for this extraordinary miscarriage of justice against him. So unfortunately, Nadler was up to his eyeballs in all of this. But I think that David Saltman has something to say about Donziger before we move on to Mumia.
Yes, and Gavrila Wells, you're next up, and we'll want to let Tatanka speak because he's got to go, and then Gavrila will get you. Dave Saltman, please.
Oh, just briefly about Donziger, just to put some finer points on this. I'm not sure that Nadler is a good idea because the fact is the Justice Department refused to prosecute Donziger. The Chevron invoked this I don't think it's ever been used before in American history, but there's a way that they do this in England, where you can have a private prosecution. And they basically hired a law firm known for Randy Mastro, the attack dog of all American lawyers. He was their chief counsel, and they prosecuted him in a private prosecution, subverting or end running the Justice Department. So I'm not sure Nadler could have even helped him out had he been there.
However, David, Danziger did report to us that he had reached out to Nadler's office and asked.
Sure. He reached out to everybody. I've actually talked I should also tell you that Donziger's defense is the entire staff of Harvard Law School. I talked to Charles Nesson. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Harvard. Charles Nesson is the reigning god of Harvard Law School, has been for a long time. He's Donziger's attorney, and I talked to him, and he can't believe what's happening here. It's a complete judicial disaster cluster.
Yeah,
you know what?
And certainly Biden could intervene. And what you said is staggering.
Yeah.
Here's Chevron, a gargantuan corporation. They get righteously sued in Ecuador, and they don't even need the judiciary.
Their answer in Ecuador was, okay, fine, we're pulling all of our stuff out of Ecuador. Frack all y'all. And they went, and then the verdict was also upheld in Canada and upheld in the Netherlands. And they said, okay, we're getting out of here too. Frack all y'all.
Quick reminder, we're going off the radio.
Swearing.
We're going on the radio. If you're going to swear, please do it in Yiddish.
$10 fine. $10 fine for each word, and it goes in my pocket. Okay? No swearing on the show. Thank you. It takes
Right, because
time to
poor
fix
Steve
all
has
that.
to go in.
I was speaking Urdu.
Urdu, right. Tatanka Bricka, you want to comment on?
I just want to state the obvious. And we have a lot of education to do of our fellow citizens. This is a perfect example of corporate capture of the entire justice system on the behalf of a corporation. And it's just it's an example that it's like Leonard, but it's just so cut and clear and dry that it was a corporation that to this day Steve cannot practice law. He doesn't have a law license due to the lawlessness of the corporate power.
And we're certainly going to see a lot more of this. I want to discuss this as we go forward. Gavrila, did you disappear on us? Gavrila, are you with us
No.
here?
Gavrila seems to have disappeared, but Ruth Strauss is
Ruth Strauss. Ruth Strauss from
Yeah,
Alabama.
hi.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I may have missed this, but the corporation, I mean the law firm was that I think unfortunately my nephew clerked for this judge, Kaplan. I think the law firm that he assigned the case to in New York was already somebody who was, being paid by Chevron, number one. Number two, they had also defended the tobacco companies way back when. And so, that he really, didn't stand a chance even in
No,
this country.
unbelievable. Gavrila Wells, Gavrila, can
Sorry
you?
about that. Yeah, I switched from my phone, which I couldn't unmute myself, and then just now I struggled to
Okay.
unmute myself. I just shared a wonderful photo of Stephen with the Clemency for Leonard photo action. Feel free to share it. I wanted to highlight, I know I put in the chat, I'm with Amnesty International. I know, Harvey,
Oh,
you know
good for
this,
you.
but yeah. Well, Vinny had led me to you a long time ago, and I think I had sent you some connections. So obviously we have a whole campaign page for Leonard, which you shared. But I wanted to share a recent song that was just made a couple days ago, and it includes, and it's for Leonard, so feel free to share it out. And the musicians include, sorry, I just wanted to highlight, one is from Taos Pueblo, and he is a Grammy award-winning flautist. It's a gorgeous song, Robert Mirabal. And
Okay.
so I did put the link in the chat. I will put it again, but feel free to share out. It's a new song for Leonard Peltier, and it has the old Leonard song, AIM song. It's a reggae Marapal. I'll put that in the chat too, or Marabal. Anyway, I just want to share that. And of course, Indian Collective, I had put in the chat before. They have a series of actions for Leonard and ways to keep up, along with Amnesty International. Amnesty had partnered with Indian Collective for our Leonard campaign work. So I just wanted to highlight Indian Collective website.
Can we play this song, or at least a little?
He said to share it far and wide.
We have to be worried about getting copyright strikes and having YouTube take the video down.
I'm sure he wouldn't. I'm sure Michael Davis and others. Well, when he texted it to me, he said share far and wide. And I do a collection of photo actions with the Clemency for Leonard signs. So I will be putting together. I'm in a million different directions. I'm more focused on death penalty work. So I was going to add that to your long list of things to ask Biden to do as well. And also
I'm glad you mentioned that. We do want to. Well, you know what, Gabriela, give me your email me. We will clear all copyright issues, and then we'll play the song next.
I'll give you Mike's information. I wanted to just say that, of course, Biden commuted 37 folks on federal death row, but we're still asking for the 7 left. The 3 left on federal and the 4 military death row. And also we're calling for him to close Guantanamo and clear the folks who have been cleared for release. There's 14 who have been cleared for release, some for over 15 years. So as we know, that orange creature wants to fill it up, and all that horrible.
Okay, so listen, we need to be in touch with. If you'll come back next week, we'll clear all issues and we'll play the full song. Okay.
So I'll ask Mike to get in touch with you, Mike Davis, and to get them
you get in touch with us. Also, we want to add you to our list. I wrote a piece about Amnesty International about 20 years ago. It was a cover article in a place called New Age Magazine, I believe. Amnesty International is one of the great organizations. It's how long you been? How long has Amnesty been in business, Givraw?
It's 1961.
Oh my God!
It's the oldest. It's the oldest grassroots human rights organization apparently in the world.
1961. Of those of you good at math, that's 64 years. That went on 64. We want you to come back. Will you come back with us next week? Give us a full presentation on Amnesty, or
I'll do my best. Oh, sure.
Because,
Yeah. Or Vinny's good at that too, because he's an Amnesty. He's my fellow
well,
Amnesty colleague.
Vinny
Yeah.
DiStefano, you mentioning, and Amnesty, of course, was instrumental in the successful release of Julian Assange. You have had great success. We always like to have groups on that are successful. And over the decades, Amnesty International has been very effective and very successful in saving lives of people who've been wrongly incarcerated. So this is a big deal, Gavril. We're very happy you showed up today. And let's do a full boat presentation next week on Amnesty, and we can play that song. Okay? And in the
Yeah,
meantime,
and the song, of course, is not from Amnesty, but it's from a longtime Leonard supporter named Mike Davis, who's a musician in New Mexico. Though his mom is an amazing abolitionist that I work with on death penalty work in California. Yeah. Okay. I can
all right, good
mute
for you,
myself.
Gabriella. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys. Thank you
My
all.
email me. My email is Solartopia, Solartopia @gmail.
Beautiful.
So if you'll
And free
email me
Leonard.
and put us in your chats and stuff, put your contacts and whatever you want to share in the chat. And yes, free Leonard. I'm hoping for this for the soul of Joe Biden that he steps up here. We're thankful, and Trump has yelled at him for commuting and make the sentences of all those people on death row. As we know, in 2017, at the end of his term, Donald Trump had, I believe it was 13 people who were
Yes,
on
it
federal
is
death row.
13.
Is that right?
Yep.
13?
Yeah. Yes. All in a row.
All
Yes.
slaughtered. Just went in
Yep.
there. They had appeals going. There were all sorts of legal roadblocks to the, shall we say, judicially acceptable. Even with the death penalty, these people had no reason to be put to death. All of them had appeals going, and so on and so forth. And Trump just walked in and killed them all. I mean, it's like he had this one by one. He had this mass firing squad, and Biden was very prescient and correct and courageous to commute those sentences, and I hope they hold up. But here
It
we
is
have.
a jubilee. It's a jubilee year for the Catholic folks, and so I know that is part of the work with the Pope and others for a lot of these cases, especially the death penalty work, but also Leonard, and obviously with the boarding school. Leonard was a boarding school survivor, and with
Oh
the
wow,
recent
I never
apology.
knew that.
Oh yeah. He had a terrible time, and he and his sisters actually.
Wow.
Anyway, so lots of reasons for Leonard. There's so many reasons, and time's running out. But I wanted to mention one thing before I
Well,
shut my mouth.
very quickly, before we lose track, we'll come right back to you. In Leonard's case, this is a de facto death penalty situation.
Yeah,
Leonard
yeah,
is 80 years old. He's very ill. There is absolutely no doubt that if he does not get out, if Joe Biden does not let him get out, he will die very soon. So I consider this to be a death penalty case, and people need to understand
great.
this. We do have 74 people with us. Very grateful for all of you attending. We appreciate it. We're talking with Gavrila Wells here of Amnesty. Go ahead, Gavrila. You wanted to say something else?
I was just going to say our colleagues, our friends at Death Penalty Action, they're doing amazing work. But I wanted to mention that they had on they have a forecast. It's called the Forecast Monthly Call about the upcoming executions, and they actually had Ethel Rosenberg's granddaughter, and they are working to do a posthumous pardon for her because she was.
I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to mention that, everything is there's so much intersection in all of this, on all of these horror stories, really, and just the horror of
Well, let's clarify. There's some people may be too young to know who about Ethel Rosenberg. Ethel Rosenberg was the wife of Julius Rosenberg, who was wrongfully executed for allegedly sharing bomb secrets back in the 1950s. And the person who was most instrumental in getting the Rosenbergs executed was Roy Cohn, who was essentially the godfather of
Yes.
if
A
God
mentor.
could for Donald Trump. And I,
Yeah.
excuse me, strongly urge everyone to see this movie, The Apprentice, which was effectively banned by Trump. I mean, he really did a very effective job of preventing it from being distributed. But Mila and I saw it in Santa Monica, and it's a horror movie. And Roy Cohn was about as toxic as an individual as ever been existed. And there are people who argue that Julius Rosenberg did, in fact, share secrets with the Soviets, but that Ethel really knew very little or nothing about it. She typed stuff for him. It was totally gratuitous to have her executed. Left these two children, the Mirpol boys, who've had tremendous lives, by the way,
Yeah.
orphans. And so the idea of getting her pardoned is very interesting, and as something that people should look at. Gavrila, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say their granddaughter is doing phenomenal work for incarcerated folks' children. Their organization is amazing. I just thought it was apropos to the tie-in with Roy Cohn and Trump and the whole thing. It just weaves and it's a whole tapestry. And so much
Yeah.
important work to do. Yeah.
Well, I got to say the
And
movie. Oh, sorry, I'm finished, please.
oh no, I'm hesitant to see the movie just because I want to see as little as I possibly can of,
Well, it's a
but
horror. It's a horror show. I mean,
yeah,
The Apprentice is one of the most horrifying movies I've ever seen. I hate horror movies with ghouls and all that kind of stuff. This was about as depressing a movie as you ever see, and basically because of the incredible performance given by an actor, I think his name is Jeremy Steele. He should get the Academy Award. I hope he does. His portrayal of Roy Cohn is terrifying. The only amazing thing about it, in some ways, is that Roy Cohn wound up, he was a horrible man all his life. He caused so much pain and hardship for so many people. And then he himself, at the end of his life, got AIDS. And at the end of his life was like begging Donald Trump for various favors. Talk about instant karma. It was amazing, but everybody should really see The Apprentice. It's an astonishing movie. Milo Reeson, go ahead. Milo, you're muted. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Muted me again. Anyway, listen, before we move on to Mumia Abu-Jamal, Ruth Strauss has been waiting to speak and she is unmuted.
Ruth, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. I hardly ever disagree with you, and Harvey, and I totally agree that the guy who played Roy Cohn was fantastic and true to Roy Cohn's character. In fact, I saw a film several years ago that was called "Where's My Roy Cohn?" And it was even more about, Roy Cohn and how awful he was. However, I thought that movie really gave Trump a pass in a big way. I mean, they only made passing reference to the redlining that went on, passing reference to his, like maybe one line or half a line mumbled of his stiffing the workers at his casinos, or the fact that he had so many bankrupts. So I just wanted to put that out there. I did, I was glad to see it and all of that, but overall, I thought they gave him a pass except for the rapes. Anyway, that's just
Well,
my
Ruth, I love you dearly, and I do agree with you to a certain extent. The movie was much more about Roy Cohn, actually, than it was about Donald Trump. But that's a great line you have. Well, except for the rape scene, they gave him a pass. I mean, it's like saying, well, except for that McDonald's I knocked off. I've had a pretty good life. But you're right, Ruth. The guy who played Donald Trump was nowhere near as compelling as the guy who played Roy Cohn, I think. So you're definitely right about that. But there was, in fact, a rape scene in the film, which is pretty devastating. Thank you for that, Ruth.
You
Dave
know,
Saltman, go ahead.
we hold on a second. We have Ray Lutz and Susan Pinchon waiting to talk about election stuff, and we
Okay.
haven't even talked about Mumia yet.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that. But Dave Saltman has a hand. Go ahead, Dave, and then Mila, you can fill us in on Mumia, and then we'll go to Ray Lutz and Susan. We'll talk about election issues. Go ahead,
Just
David.
one last button on the Donald Trump Roy Cohn story. As I've explained on this broadcast before, Roy Cohn persecuted my parents, so I have a personal vendetta here. And I made two films about Donald Trump, both aired on CNN, 2 hours, one before bankruptcy and one after bankruptcy. And I will tell you, it is in the public record and it's crystal clear that Donald Trump is the worst businessman of all time. He is the only person in the world who has been able to own three casinos and lose money at all three of them. I rest my case.
Oh, there you go. We're about to see his business ability as he becomes CEO of the United States of America. And boy, the vultures are certainly lined up. God help us. T-bills may turn out to be a bad investment under Donald Trump. Go ahead, Milo Reason. Thank you, Dave.
So I'm going to share this. Mumia is one more person who, one more political prisoner that we really need to work to free. He did not receive a fair trial. He is a journalist who reports regularly and is heard regularly on the Pacifica stations, and also on the affiliate stations that are the over 200 affiliate stations that are aligned with Pacifica Radio. He is a political prisoner that has been imprisoned for decades. He did not receive a fair trial. He maintains his innocence, and please learn more about him. You can go to freemumia.com and contact Biden and tell them to free Mumia, free Leonard, free Little John. What was Little John's first name?
Charles Little John.
Charles Little John. And who am I leaving out? It's just
Well, there are tons of people that don't need to.
Donziger.
Steve
Oh,
Donziger.
of course, Steve Donziger. So that's all. I think we probably need to continue this conversation later.
Okay. Well, thank you again, everybody. We need to redouble our efforts. We've got 2 weeks to get these people some kind of justice. Let's hope to God that Joe Biden's up for it. I do want to compliment him again for freezing those offshore leases. That's a very big deal. We have 77 people with us. Anybody else wants to jump in, please do. We're going to go to Ray Lutz now. Nicole Corrado, and then we'll go to Ray Lutz and Susan Pinchon. Nicole, go ahead, jump in, please. Oh, you're muted. Hold on.
For me, Nicole
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
yes,
Nicole.
I wanted to suggest that I tried to send in the chat, but it was maybe my text was too long. I was preparing it. I wanted to see if anybody would be willing to ask Biden to revoke the security clearance for Musk, because he's becoming a national security threat. Because he intervened with the Starlink, in the war in Ukraine, and he goes all different countries trying to influence the elections, in Australia and in the UK, in Germany. He supports the Nazi Party, and there's also already a petition asking to revoke his clearance, but it does not ask for sanction on these Russian oligarchs' son who have invested in Twitter. I mean, the Russian who are sanctioned, they're not allowed to use their money to invest into anything. But the son of these Russian oligarch, they bypass that using their son's name, and they invested in Twitter, and because Elon could not buy the whole Twitter unless these other people stepped in and buy the other share of it.
Wow, thank you for
Thanks,
that, Nicole. Very good. We appreciate that. Thank you. My big fear is that he's going to step in and buy NBC so he can kill MSNBC. Well, he only has $400 billion, this guy. How many countries in the world have $400 billion? So
But he cannot spend all of it at once. He has to sell his share, and if he sells his share, he cannot sell more than 25% at a time. So,
Thanks,
but he,
Nicole. And we were actually trying to call on another Nicole. So if you could wrap up real
no,
quickly,
Nicole,
because
that's great. We got you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mike, for that. But Nicole Corrado, please join us again if you have specific expertise on Elon Musk. He's going to be the real president of the United States, at least for a while. So we will have to have a separate section on Elon Musk. It's quite amazing, actually.
I have a
Thank you.
question about the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He just resigned today,
Yeah, we
and
don't know.
I'm wondering how that's going to affect Leonard Peltier.
That's a good question. I don't know if it'll have a direct impact, but we never know. As I say, Canada was remanded to a previous prisoner from death row. So we'll see about that. Thank you, Nicole. Come back with more specific report on Elon Musk. We will need to deal with him going forward.
yeah, you saw the
Coming out-
DOJ email, right? The attorney for the DOJ to ask for the pardon.
Well,
I
put it in
posted
the
that.
chat. Put it in the chat,
I
please.
did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
Everybody see it?
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have Ray Lutz and Susan Pinchon, two of our election protection experts. Ray, we start with you? Can you tell us what's going on in the ongoing prosecution of John Brakey and the other issues on auditing? And Susan will talk to you as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Harvey. We in this election, we've been trying to find out how to do some quick checks because it's been taking us a long time to get through all of the audits, review, and everything else. And obviously, a lot of people are concerned about this election. We heard about how turnout was going to be really, really sky high, and everybody was talking about the election. And then the turnout is less than in 2020. It's amazing. And it does seem like there was some limiting of the votes. Now, we took a look at Nevada because Nevada is one of those states that was very anomalous because it had voted for the Democratic candidate both in 2016 and 2020 against Trump. And then in 2024, Trump won the state. Not only that, but the down ballot Senate contest did go to the Democratic candidate. So it was very unusual for the Senate contest, which is the whole state votes for that. The Democrat won, but in the presidential contest, Harris lost. So normally if you take a look at, and I just posted a Substack on this just now with a chart in it. I know it's hard to show stuff on the air, but basically, if you take all of the precincts, and there are 750 precincts in Clark County. Okay, Clark County, Nevada is where Las Vegas is, and it accounts for about 66% of all the votes in Nevada. And so really, if you just analyze that, you get a really good sense for how Nevada voted. But there is another 33% of very, very red small counties, the other 16 around it. Now, okay, there you go. Yeah, show that chart if you can. So basically, if you take a look at if you rate all of the precincts, and I put this along the x-axis, you rate them from based on their partisanship, like how the major party voters are, how they're registered. Okay, and it's going to start at you're not going to get any precincts that are 100% usually or 0%, but it's counter. So if it's 10% Democratic, it's going to be 90% Republican. The way I have this set up. And Republican at the left is 0, and at the right is 100%. So the left of the chart is the Democratic side, and the right of the chart is the Republicans. And the generally you expect this to be kind of like a big X. So in the case of the Republican precincts, it very much is so. This precincts that are like light on Republicans on the left side of the chart there didn't have a very high turnout because there are not too many there. And then on the right side, there's a lot of Republicans there, so they have a higher percentage turnout of the total vote. Okay, so it normally is going to be an X like that. But what you see here is that in the case of the highly Democratic precincts, which is in that upper left-hand quadrant, there's really no votes there, and it's been artificially limited to about a 45% total turnout. That is turnout of all the registered voters, which is going to be less than what it was. So it looks like if those votes were swapped over to the Republicans, then the red dots would move up off of their line, and they didn't. They stayed along their line. So it looks like that in this chart that the Democratic votes in the heavily Democratic precincts were eliminated somehow. And we're not sure how that is at this point.
Right.
But that seems like what matches the data.
Well, nationwide, there was many millions of missing Democratic votes. Now, Greg Palast has come on and said that a couple of weeks ago said that the suppression of the suspected Democrats, and we have about 75 people with us now. The suppression of the Democratic vote nationwide was somewhere between 10 and 20 million. Now, and that would explain the alleged victory of Donald Trump, which was less than 2 million. I mean, the spin from the Republican side is that this has been a landslide for Donald Trump. In fact, his margin of victory was the lowest since 1960, except for 1968. So 1960, 1968, the vote count, the margin of victory was less. But in 2024, Donald Trump won by less than 2 million votes. And the whole rubric that we're hearing is that the Democrats didn't turn out to vote, and that explains the margin of victory for Trump. But I don't find that credible. The level of excitement for the candidacy of Kamala Harris, I think, was reasonably high. There are reports of very large turnouts in many of the key precincts, physical reporting, and she lost in all 7 swing states by margins that could be explained by low voter turnout among the Democrats, or, as you're pointing out here, some sort of erasure of Democratic votes. So,
yeah, it could be erasure. I'm not sure, but in this county also, we noticed that the in-person voting and early voting were both extremely dominated by the Republican, and whereas the mail-in ballots were dominated by Democrats. So you couldn't really tell from that what was going on. And since the votes were not being replaced, like it's not changing the votes from Harris to Trump, because otherwise then we'd see those bubbles go up. It looks like it's just a stopping, either as you say, it could be that through intimidation or other kinds of schemes where they stop those voters from going to the polls. They could have used schemes like saying, the election isn't until next week for you, and your poll is over here on the other side somewhere, and then they go there and it's not there, and they're all confused, so they don't vote. There's all these other schemes that could possibly happen, including in Clark County, they still use these really horrible machines that have a very crappy paper trail. And I'm still trying to dig into exactly, they say they've audited it, but usually when they say they've audited something, they're actually exaggerating. They don't audit it very well. And so we're looking into if they actually did audit those in-person machines. Anyway, so there's other factors, but right now, I'm looking at this chart and I'm just basically takes my breath away because it looks like they almost had an artificial limit where they said, okay, anything more than 45% of the total registration, we're going to somehow eliminate. How they're doing it, I'm not sure, but we're looking into it. Take a look at the Substack article. It's pretty interesting.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Extremely interesting, Ray. Let's. Who else do we have here?
Susan.
Susan Pinchon. Susan, please.
Hi, Harvey. I actually just started to tell you why John Brakey wasn't on the call tonight, but
Go ahead.
I can briefly just tell people that there's an attack in Arizona on John Brakey and his organization, Audit USA or auditelectionsusa.org. John requested public records from Santa Cruz County, a small southern border county in Arizona, specifically the cast vote record, which lists all the votes on all the ballots. They're all anonymous. And Santa Cruz County had freely given out this record in the past. They said they were going to give it to him. This was for a 2022 primary election, that they would give him the records on August 18th, 2022. Instead, on that same date, they sued him and sued Audit USA for requesting the record. Now, just imagine how chilling that is on our right to get governmental records and our right to oversee our government if someone has to be worried that if they just ask for a record, that the governmental entity can sue them. So he's now been embroiled in a 2-year lawsuit that he did not ask for, does not deserve. The Superior Court judge said that the county was outside the bounds of public records law to sue him. They've appealed twice now, and there's another hearing coming up on the 15th of this month. So I'm just letting you all know that. And meanwhile, they're holding up this very important record statewide while this case gets resolved. So that's it, basically.
Okay, it's pretty depressing, and everybody. There's a tremendous media applause for Kamala Harris for not raising any of these issues. One thing about the Democrats, you can always count on them to disappoint and disappear. And I'm not being partisan here, but Kamala Harris just flat out disappeared after the election, despite all these tremendously important issues raised by Ray Lutz and John Brakey and you and so many other people, Greg Palast, so many other people, Steve Spoonemore, so many other people who've looked at the actual mechanics of this election and raised devastatingly important questions. And we have to remember also that we had the world's richest person apparently intervening with every ounce of his payroll to swing the election to Donald Trump. There was no hiding any of this. There's nothing subtle about it. And yet the Democratic flag bearer just flat out disappears. And we've seen this before. Al Gore disappeared, John Kerry disappeared, Hillary Clinton disappeared, and never raised any of the serious issues that have been raised in these Zoom calls and among the election protection community, which means they can do it again and again and again. It's outrageous. Don McCann, go ahead, please, Don.
Yes. First of all, I'm a former president of PNHP, Physicians for a National Health Program, and obviously Medicare for All supporter. And I just want to
thank you for that work.
And I just wanted to reinforce what Hartzell Gray opened the meeting with, and that's the need for youth in the progressive movement. I'm 87 years old, and there are too many old duffers disproportionately like me, and we don't have enough youth. And so, in fact, we just had a grandchild over staying a few days during the holidays, who happens to be trans, but is a very effective progressive activist. And he or she, I have trouble with gender pronouns at my age, but anyway, she is going to become active in YPDA, the Young Progressive Democrats of America. And what I want to say is, let's get young people into activism, and the pathway through YPDA is, I think, a great way to move some of these people in. And their website again is ypda.org.
Well, thank you for that, and congratulations on the activism of your grandchild. It's much appreciated, Don, and you don't look a day over 85. So,
and Don, I got that email, and tell her that I will be circling back this week.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Let's talk again very briefly. We got Jack Idy on. Jack, you with us here? But we're going to jump into a couple other things. But I do want to, before we depart, we devoted a tremendous amount of time to the discussion of the 14th Amendment and its ban on insurrectionists having public office. And it's all just been blown off. The Democrats paid no attention. And now, we had this snow-filled session in Congress today where the electoral votes were certified and nobody raised the issue. I mean, what are you going to do with this Democratic Party to get any kind of attention paid to election protection issues? I will repeat that in 2004, this is up close and personal. I was living there, teaching in Hampshire, in a couple of colleges, and Bob Petrakis was there at Columbus State, and we showed 100, literally 100 different ways that the Ohio election had been stolen, which would have put those electoral votes would have put John Kerry in the White House. We briefed his people, who we knew in Columbus. We briefed him, or he was briefed. They never raised any issues, and it's not calling the electoral system into question in a frivolous manner. These are issues that to this day are still plaguing our ability to have a fair election in this country, and never dealt with. None of these issues ever dealt with by the Democratic Party. Completely outrageous. Dave Solomon, go ahead, and then we'll go to Jack.
Along that line, Harvey, I want to say I was absolutely horrified to look at the front pages of the newspapers today and not see a single word about the petition that we all, our people on this call and others, sent to the Congress to prevent Trump from taking the oath of office because of the constitutional issues raised in the 14th Amendment, Section 3, which we discussed at length last time. Not a peep in the newspapers. Kamala Harris certified everything, and I'm shocked that I should have called them myself, the New York Times front page editors, but they didn't seem to be aware of it in any way. And I'd say I'm going to blame us for that, because we need to work the media so much better. We don't work the media at all, frankly, or to a very minimal degree. And I think frankly, what else is there at this point?
Well, Steve Bannon has made it clear that he really wants to focus on the media. And
He's right.
Yeah, but how is it that a brilliant guy like Ray Lutz can show us this chart in Nevada, where clearly Democratic voters were disappeared, and there are all sorts of computer issues raised by Stephen Spoonermore, all sorts of 14th Amendment issues raised by so many people, and zero coverage of any of it, and zero attention paid by the Democratic Party. Believe me, if the Republicans were in this situation, if Kamala had won this election, they'd be screaming up and down with all of.
That's what happened last time. You're
right. I mean, all they did was storm the Capitol last time. This time, the Democrats don't even peep a word. The Democrats are pathetic, absolutely pathetic on these issues. And I know from personal experience in Ohio 2004. We were never, when we raised all these issues about 2004 election, we were never attacked by the Republicans. They couldn't have cared less. We showed up, literally, I wrote a book, just 100 different ways that Karl Rove stole the 2004 election. The Republicans never said a word. They couldn't have cared less. And the Democrats were yelling at us, saying, "Oh, you'll suppress the turnout." And here we have Greg Palast showing us how the Republicans suppressed the turnout. Democrats didn't say a word. I mean, it's outrageous. So, Jack, we're going to get to you in 1 second. Diane raised her hand, then we'll go to Jack. Sorry. Diane, go ahead. Diane has never spoken on our calls before, Jack, so I got to give her a little.
No worries.
Okay, go ahead. Diane, please.
Thank you, Harvey. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm a friend of Mike Hirsch's, and I'm an anti-highway activist, and also a longtime democracy activist. And I have a couple of quick notes about the current discussion about the January 6, 2021 attacks, the mob attack on Congress. And on a linguistic note, I think that we should say that the January 6, 2021 mob attacked our Congress because our Congress is our legislative body, whereas when we say that they attacked the Capitol, in my mind, that mostly means that they attacked a building, which they did both. But if their only intent and their only act was to attack the Capitol, then that would have ended once they breached the Capitol and were standing in the rotunda. But they did
Okay.
far more than that. So I like to say that they attacked our Congress.
Okay, thank you for that. And all I can say is I wish in 2020 that it had snowed like it did today in 25. I wish it had snowed in 21 as it has today in 25. But thank you for that, Diane.
Thank
And
you.
we'll come back to
I have
you.
one more quick note on the theft of the Ohio Democratic vote in 2020 in 2004. It was David Cobb of the Green Party who brought suit on behalf of the Democrats in Ohio.
Right. And in 2016, when Jill Stein correctly questioned the vote counting in Michigan, a judge said, yes, there should be a recount, but it has to be Hillary Clinton, not Jill Stein. And Hillary Clinton said no. She just blew it off. After all these years, since Florida 2000, really, of clearly rigged and stolen elections, the Democratic Party has done zero, nothing. And their big heavy hitter, Mark Elias, came out, vehemently attacking us once again for questioning the vote in 2024. Outrageous, just outrageous. There you go. Okay, here we are. Oh my God. Yeah, Steve, thanks for showing that great cover. The strip and flip disaster of America's stolen elections. Anybody wants to check it out, go ahead, please. Thank you, Diane. Okay, Jack. Jack, great to have you with us, Jack. We still have 65 people that our calls have the longest attention spans in America. Go ahead, Jack, please.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm here to talk a bit about what's going on with Trump's picks. I am an urban planner. I have a radio show that's on Pacifica Radio. We're syndicated across a bunch of stations.
And Jack will be a part next week of our inauguration of the Environmental Program Network, and Jack's show at KPFK is a really great one. So Jack, we're really glad to have you with us.
Yeah, Eco Justice Radio is what we are. It's a weekly show that we talk about solutions, the way forward, how to pick our way through all these disasters beyond the politics. But the politics, as you all quite probably know, we've got some real challenges, and Trump's picks are going to be a massive headache for all of us. There's a bunch of other picks, but I'm going to focus mainly on the environmentally focused.
Oh God, what happened here?
Ones, and so the federal land and water. He's the Petrostate, North Dakota governor. He's a fossil fuel advocate. He's a former software executive billionaire, highly qualified to oversee land and water. He's a big supporter of more drilling on public lands. He has admitted that climate change is real, which is different than some of the other folks, but that was before he worked for Trump. I think the quote from Kieran Suckling at the Center for Biological Diversity was, Burgum is an oligarch completely out of touch with the majority of U.S. people who cherish natural heritage and don't want our parks, wildlife refuges, and special places carved up and destroyed. So Burgum himself leases his family land for oil and gas drilling to Continental Resources, which is owned by his billionaire buddy and collaborator Harold Hamm. So Burgum, during the 2024 presidential campaign for Trump, was the go-between between the fossil fuel industry during that race. Harold Hamm, quite distinguished fellow over there. He's the one who organized the dinner between Trump and the oil executives last spring, where Trump asked for $1 billion in donations in order to demolish Biden's climate agenda. An extremely weak climate agenda, but there was an agenda at least. Burgum was an attendee of that. The Washington Post reported that Burgum's selection as interior will give Ham, our expansive influence over policy related to drilling on public lands at a time where his company stands to benefit from the rule changes Trump envisioned. So, meaning supremacy of fossil fuels in a time when we're in massive climate emergency and desperation truly across the globe. Burgum and Ham have already worked to shape Trump's energy policy during the presidential transition. Reuters announced that they're leading the push for the repeal of the electric vehicle tax credits, the key component of the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act. So there's that. And then in North Dakota, Burgum has been pushing this 2,000-mile carbon pipeline. And it's set to be built by Summit Carbon Solutions. They want to capture these planet-warming CO2 gases and store them underground, which is a completely false solution. We did a show a little earlier last year on this issue. It's extreme. It's just a complete scam. The interesting thing is RFK Jr. did a campaign video for Trump saying that this pipeline and of course this fake solution is part of the Inflation Reduction Act and it's part of Biden's fault. And it's true that Biden folk are funding these ridiculous the pipelines and this false solution that has never been proven. It's totally expensive. And what is it really going to sequester, and can they actually sequester it? So there's all these questions, and there was a carbon gas leak in Oklahoma, I think it was. It's so dangerous for people. I mean, you can't even breathe. Your cars, emergency vehicles will not be able to run because the oxygen doesn't work. So there's so many problems with this stuff. But Burgum's behind that in North Dakota, and so basically there's these type of things going on over there in North Dakota and with Burgum.
Well, that's pretty mind-boggling. I will say that what we've had in California on the carbon issue and on the energy issue is a horrendous betrayal by Gavin Newsom. And so we need to balance that. Jack, maybe you can comment on this as a great environmentalist. Biden's Inflation Reduction Act did quite a bit of good for the renewable energy industry, but at the same time, it's been pushing nuclear.
Right.
And, we've had to deal with all this crazy nuclear crap. And I did want to point out very quickly, I need to slip this in and we can talk about it later. There's a mind-boggling article in the New York Times Magazine about the impact of drones on trench warfare in Ukraine. And I highly recommend that everybody read this article. It's devastating. And then there's another piece yesterday in the Times about the effect of drones on domestic, basically terrorism. But in neither article do they mention the potential of drones to harm nuclear power plants, which is an obvious, factor and something that really needs to be discussed. But Jack, talking about these Trump appointees, what kind of signals are you seeing on atomic energy, if any?
Well, I think that the all of the above mentality says that it's all systems go. On these ones who I'm going to talk about here, there's not a lot of specific other than they support nuclear. The thing you can talk about Chris Wright, who's the fracker in chief, energy secretary. They're first and foremost interested in fossil fuels, but all of the above. See, these false solutions, and of course they call nuclear a solution to climate change these days. So you know, they're pushing it out as you know how they're dealing with climate change, and of course the push towards small modular nuclear reactors, pretending that that's something completely different than the existing reactors, which obviously, Harvey, you could talk about at length. But these are some of the solutions, and being a tech billionaire, who Burgum is, these are the folks who are really interested in coming up with a way to say that these data centers are going to have enough electricity. So I think that you're going to be seeing a lot of push for nuclear, and there's a crazed supporter group. It's like a AstroTurf whatever group out there pretending that it's a massive movement of people who are demanding nuclear. So it's something that is really important for people to step up against. Just to go quick, I don't know if there's any comment you have on that, but I could jump into Chris Wright, Energy Secretary.
We have a couple of hands real quick.
Okay,
it's great to have you doing this. Steve Caruso and then Diane Cameron. Steve?
Yeah, their carbon capture thing, they're well somewhere out west where they pumped and pumped and pumped this thing full. And some guys had some monitors up on the hill that checking it out. Two guys went up to check it out.
Oh,
and what happened, it looked like mud was coming downhill, but it wasn't actually mud. It was like sand and just, I don't know, rock dissolved in CO2. So the physics of that whole thing is just a whole different ball. But yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Steve. Diane Cameron, and then we'll go back to Jack.
Yeah, thank you. Myself, being a campaigner to cancel a local highway project, the proposed 5-mile Mid-County Highway, or M83 in Montgomery County, Maryland, has really highlighted for us, and Mike Hirsch is part of our campaign and bringing PDA's voice to this. So thank you, Mike. It's really it's not only parallel to the fallacy of all of the above that we just heard about from Jack in the energy sphere. There is also a very bogus all of the above transportation policy that the mainstream Democratic Party, certainly here in Maryland, is very bought into, saying that that the way what they say the way we should respond to the climate crisis is to keep on building more highways and keep on expanding and adding, that there's an infinite pavement blanket that they want to lay down. And the way that they say that that's going to be all great for the climate is everyone's going to be driving electric vehicles on these massively expanded highways. And so there's this belief that electric vehicles will solve everything. And one of the huge problems with that the electric vehicle industry never wants to talk about is the inherent electricity demand that entails, and where's the electricity going to come from? And yeah, as Jack was just noting, probably nuclear. And then they never want to talk about nuclear waste itself as an inherent hazard.
It's pretty mind-boggling. Mike Hurst, and then we'll go back to Jack.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sluggo, and Jack and Diane. Thank you so much, both of you. Jack, I was just wondering if you could inform our testimony coming up towards the end of the week, where we're trying to dissuade our local government embracing this highway. Has Los Angeles been able to pave its way out of traffic jams by any chance?
That's a good one, Mike. No, I will say that the Metro in Los Angeles has done a lot to change the game for Los Angeles specific. That does not mean they've come anywhere close to changing the fossil fuel car dependent way of life that we have here in Los Angeles. But they have put a lot of resources and a lot of interest in developing the network in a way that I think is exemplary. There's plenty of criticisms. There's also a lot more need for bus and secondary and tertiary connections, as well as other modes that are self-propelled and walking, of course. And these are falling flat. And because there's still a lot of, I mean, people are still driving their cars en masse, and there's a lot of investment in the old highways, freeways, etc. Toll roads is a major problem. We've been fighting this toll version of pay as you go type of thing. We were able to defeat one extension down in Orange County a few years back, but they keep pushing a bunch of other ones. There's another extension out in the desert that they want to have, and there's even talk about that being a toll road. So the all of the above, which was mentioned, I think that's really the mentality. Some transportation departments are better than others. Like I deal a lot with Orange County to the south of LA. They will not look at any alternative to the personal autumn. I mean, there's a couple little. There's obviously a bus system down there, and there's some trolleys and things on wheels, not rail. And rail does pass through there, but you know, it's walking in and having meetings with them is a serious slap in the face. It's very difficult. I have a lot of in my urban planning side. I've dealt a lot. So I'll if there's anything else, I'll jump back into the focus here.
I did want to cut very quickly, Jack. See, since Susan Pinchon, if you're still with us, if you wanted to jump in with anything before we proceed. Susan Pinchon, go ahead, raise your hand, or just jump in. I know you've been waiting, and you were on election issues. We didn't get to you, so go ahead, Susan, if you want to speak.
No, Harvey, I said what I was going to say about John Brakey in that lawsuit. So I'm, there's a lot to say on a lot of things, but
Okay, good.
I'm good. Thank you. I would like to know how he defeated. He said he defeated that one highway in Orange County. That might be helpful for the people trying to defeat the one in Maryland.
Well,
Jack, just go ahead.
Yeah, we had some really good publicity people who we got surfers on board really by people. A lot of people can't envision what a highway will do in terms of creating development out there, but it was coming back to connect to the I-5 near San Onofre nuclear plant, but also was going to impact San Onofre Beach. So we energized the surfers through just a lot of, I mean, I was working with Sierra Club mainly, and we couldn't get Surfrider on board, but when the surfers started to realize that could potentially impact their break at a world-class surfing beach at Trestles down there, people started to care, and then one thing led to another, and suddenly after Surfrider came on board, we grew our ranks and got some funding behind it, and went to the Coastal Commission, and were able to defeat it in kind of a miracle, because we were basically getting hit over the head by earlier approvals by any agency. So having good publicity people is a big deal. Trying to make people care to come out and step up a challenge.
Well, we found in California that surfers are incredibly effective politically. They were a major force at San Onofre and have been elsewhere. And I did, since you mentioned that, there is some press on a guy in California who apparently rode a wave that was more than 100 feet high, which would be the world record. So congratulations to him. There's also been some coverage of a major earthquake fault offshore in California or on the West Coast that could, in fact, produce 100-foot waves and a tsunami. So God help us all on that. So, Jack, in terms of the Trump cabinet, what else you got? I mean, I have to say that the Trump transition period since November has been incredibly entertaining in so many ways. I mean, we have this situation none of us ever envisioned of Steve Bannon screaming at Elon Musk. Have you followed that one at all?
Yeah, I have.
What's the root of this here? Why does Steve Bannon hate Elon Musk?
Well, that's not my specialty on that, so maybe someone else might have a better look at it. But basically, Elon Musk, I mean, that's going into question the visas and immigration, and the fact also that, I mean, these people, the MAGA crowd they've been had. There's been so many things that people are expecting, like draining the swamp, but each one of these people are billionaires. Each one that I'm going to talk about, they're all billionaires. They come from business. They made their billions. They got bored and decided to go into government so they could take over government and give it back to business. It's a 100% billionaire cabinet. So Steve Bannon is representing the MAGA crowd, saying, "Hey, look, we've been had. I mean, there's a question of war. Yeah, people were hoping to think that Trump would be anti-war, which is a joke if you really think about where he's at and how he's going to treat. There's some question about the Ukraine issues, but there's certainly no question of what's going on in Gaza, where Trump stands on that. So, that's a bigger issue that we could get into, but I'll try and keep to the environmental stuff.
Right. Well, again, I want to discuss this in greater detail next week, Jack, but I do again want to encourage everybody to read this New York Times Magazine article. If you can't download it, email me directly and I'll download a copy and send it. And Jack, you may want to look at this as well. The article, which is based in Ukraine, a Times reporter went in and embedded with the Ukrainian drone fleet. And in response to not getting the funding that he wanted, the Ukrainian prime minister basically called for 1 million drones in Ukraine. That was his slogan, 1 million drones. And this article underscores how effective drones are in warfare. It's staggering to see this. So I know it's off topic a bit, but we will discuss it next week. But go ahead, Jack, please tell us about the rest of these Trump appointees, please.
Yeah. The impact on the environment from war is massive, definitely related. But here we're talking about energy. So Chris Wright, fracker in chief, is who he would be. He drank what he called fracking fluid to prove it was safe. So I suggest that he should take some of those so-called chemicals and introduce them into his family drinking well, and we'll see how that works out for him. He's a serious enemy to the environment and basically all of us. As one environmental campaigner said, this is going to be the oiliest administration since George W. Bush. Well, I don't know, maybe since the last Trump, but they're all working together. Wright comes from a Denver-based oil services company, Liberty Energy. He's a Republican donor whose nomination to head the DOE is backed by powerful fossil fuel boosters, including who we talked about under the interior section on Harold Hamm. His name came back in here again. So Harold Hamm has got his little hands on all of these things here. He'll be focusing on ramping up exports of liquefied natural gas from the major projects along the Gulf Coast and other regions. Right now, one of the few good things on energy that advocates were able to do was get a pause in the approvals for LNG to assess climate and environmental impacts that has been going on right now. There are some current controversial LNG projects that could get the go-ahead under Wright, including this horrific CP2 project in Louisiana, as well as Alaska's $43 billion LNG project. And
Jesus, $43 billion?
Yeah.
That's a
And
gargantuan amount of money.
the Louisiana drilling is hooked up with what's going on in Texas and New Mexico in terms of drilling and fracking in the Permian Basin. Just such a brutality, and of course the Alaska is all up in there, those sensitive lands that need to need to be protected. This whole thing of pushing LNG, it's just such a nightmare, and it is tied into the Ukraine war. which, is another question of getting Europe to our gas instead of Russia's gas. So Chris has been a leading technologist and entrepreneur in energy. He's worked in nuclear, solar, geothermal, and oil and gas, said Trump. So underline that nuclear there. Most significantly, Chris was one of the pioneers who helped launch the American shale revolution and fueled American energy independence and transformed the markets and geopolitics. So Trump is excited about him. Wright calls himself a lifelong environmentalist and said that last year that climate change is a real problem. However, he said in 2023, there's no such thing as clean energy or dirty energy, and that there is no climate crisis, and we're not in the midst of an energy transition either. So
this is the guy who's going to be Secretary of Energy.
Yeah, he's good at talking through both sides of his mouth.
Do you think that they will be inclined to give as much money to nuclear as Biden was?
I think they will give at least as much money, if not more. So I think yes, they will definitely. I mean, it's a question if you're focusing back on, because Biden people are they're pretending that like that's their solution to climate change. So, you could make an argument that there would be less focus because it's such a complete fake boondoggle and so expensive and such a waste of time, of money, time, all of us, and potentially health of many people. But that doesn't mean that this oil and gas is anything. Wright was a veteran of Colorado's oil and gas wars during between 2019 and 21, when they were coming up with this environmental social governance greenwashing effort. He was basically saying that fracking is a gift to humanity, and that was part of his "there is no climate crisis" quote. So we got some issues with the fracker in chief coming our way.
Okay. And what else on the environment? Any of these other appointments seriously impinging on the ability to save the planet?
Yeah, a few others. Lee Zeldin, EPA.
Oh,
Another
God.
enemy of the environment and regulation in particular. He's from New York. He hates clean energy and climate protections and will seek to repeal all of them in favor of drilling, chopping, dumping, and burning. Good luck to maintaining the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, which, of course, were under major fire during one. And he has even suggested moving the EPA out of DC, not to save money, which is that's what they might do, but really that's to make most of the staff quit. And they could replace them with whatever bots they can find from the MAGA campus clubs or something. I'm not sure what they plan. We did an interview with Mustafa Santiago Ali, who was an environmental justice leader during Obama, and he went into the Trump administration, and he resigned pretty quick, and gave a major testimony on our radio show. He's doing incredible work these days, still speaking out for communities and environmental justice. So these type of things are going to get lost under this new EPA. This former rep from New York voted against Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. He opposed clean water and clean air protections and the EPA's methane pollution safeguards, and he campaigned against a ban of fossil fuel cars in New York by 2035 that Trump threatens to terminate. Anyone expecting EPA to address urgent climate issues, rising sea levels, wildfire intensity, chemical exposure in communities, Zeldin's environmental philosophy, which is business first, is going to be the opposite. So that's no good news on Lee Zeldin to report. And Sean Duffy, we talked a little bit about transportation earlier, Department of Transportation Secretary. I didn't do deep research, but just real quick, his experience, because there's not much to get, his experience in the field includes meeting his future wife on the set of MTV's Road Rules All Stars in 1998, which is, that's an exemplary qualification there. He has no experience whatsoever regarding transit or railroads. In his time in Congress, he was involved in zero bills regarding transportation. He received a 2% voting record from the League of Conservation Voters. He seems to not believe that climate change is caused by human activity. And let's just add that transportation is the greatest source of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. So Sean Duffy, another one of those appointees.
Is there any chance any of these appointments will be sufficiently opposed in hearings to prevent them from going through?
Well, I was looking around there. The thing about sometimes, like there's more, shall we say, cartoonish appointments like Matt Gaetz and things where people sort of spoke out pretty loudly, and they in some ways make these people seem more, appropriate for the job because they're not totally crazy. They say some fake things that sound. I don't know how I don't know how Sean Duffy can talk about transportation, but it's not the first time that a completely unqualified person's headed up that department. I think Biden's transportation guy was not so great. But Lee Zeldin, is also, he seems like, see, these people don't have a high enough profile to where there will be a mass uprising. And as was stated earlier, the Democrat going against these things, there's just not the will to step up on these issues, it seems. I think RFK Jr. will have a tougher time getting his nomination, but in terms of these types of nominations, I mean, I would hope that people would step up against Chris Wright because he's really obviously a really delusional appointment. But he has a low profile, and it might be enough for him to get in there.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty discouraging report, to which I'll
Sorry.
add our continued dismay with the Democratic governor of California, who I consider to be, at this point in time, the leading anti-environmental force in government. I mean, California was poised to lead the world into a solartopian situation. We have booming rooftop solar industry, which employed more than 70,000 people just in California. We have 2 million solar rooftops in California. We had a brilliant and extremely carefully constructed plan in place to phase out the two reactors at Diablo Canyon and phase in a major transition to rooftop solar, to batteries, geothermal, offshore wind. All these things were in place as of 2018, signed off on by the governor, Jerry Brown, the Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, the state assembly, all the regulatory agencies, the local governments, the unions, the environmental groups. This was all done, signed, sealed, and delivered in 2018. We had 4 years of moving ahead with this project till 2022. And then all of a sudden, Gavin Newsom, who, as I say, signed the deal in 2018 as lieutenant governor, swooped in and got the assembly, the state legislature, to revoke it and to pour in off the top over $1 billion into Pacific Gas and Electric, which had agreed to the phase out, by the way, to reverse direction, continue to operate the 2 reactors at Diablo Canyon, including one which was very seriously embrittled, a dozen earthquake faults, not counting the San Andreas, and then the CPUC under the Public Utilities Commission under Newsom's thumb decimated the rate structure in California, further destroying or sabotaging the solar industry, and here we are, and no one has done more damage. And I'll say this completely advisedly: no one has done more damage to the transition to renewable to a renewable based energy economy than Gavin Newsom. I mean, California is the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world, and we were going 100% solar, and he stopped it. No Republican has done more damage, as far as I'm concerned, than Gavin Newsom. And he's not going into the cabinet, but he certainly takes the prize right now, as far as I'm concerned, for climate destroyer. Jack, you're a Californian. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Well, I unfortunately would agree. It's interesting with Newsom because he has many faces. One of his faces is fighting against the fossil fuel push, and the Western States Petroleum Association, all of that. There was a push to ban all drilling started out at 1,500 feet from schools or housing or any place where children or seniors or people might be living, and that was approved. It was approved in the city of Los Angeles as well as in the state. Maybe it was, I forget the actual feet. I don't have that information right in my head right now, but there was an approved plan and how they were going to do it, and all of that has fallen upon just all kinds of malfeasance on the part of Newsom and his cronies over there. So, and they've even thrown a wrench into the city of LA banning that neighborhood drilling, which now they're going to have to start. There was a major stand together against neighborhood drilling. Stand.org is an incredible organization. It's a coalition of many groups across the metropolitan region here to stop the drilling in neighborhoods. And they got their approvals and went through years of advocacy, and then, a judge sort of threw a hell in that, but it's associated with what the state's doing as well. So, I mean, I think to all of this, and that's why calls like this are important. People need to step up and get active. In the past, we've been doing marches and protests against, like, say, the pipeline expansions and all of these climate things. I don't think under Trump marches work that well, but we need strong environmental lawyers. So there was in the chat over there was some question about what environmental organizations are the best ones to support these days, and I'd say the lawyers who don't make a lot of deals, like the Center for Biological Diversity and like Earth Justice, who have a lot of victories during the last Trump administration. They're going to need more support, because that's really, I mean, yeah, we need people out on the street making noise, but I'm a co-founder of SoCal 350, Climate Action of 350.org group. Our biggest thing was organizing actions on the street, but honestly, I don't see us in that period, and it really ended with Trump won. So I don't see us going back to that model of advocacy, but we still need to build the movement and bring people into it and we need to wake people up. And that's a challenge. But I think that and that's kind of what I think a lot of people on this call are sort of hitting their head, like, why aren't people speaking up? Well, there's a lot of reasons. People have to feel like there's some value to it. And Trump people are so nefarious and corrupt that it seems like how could we even convince them? But the lawyers can help. And so,
Okay.
I think that's a big deal.
We're going to find out, Jack, and thank you for that report on the incoming clown car here. And Mike Hirsch, but stay with us, Jack. And as I say, next week, in the second hour of our call.
I thought it was 2 weeks from.
Oh, is it 2 weeks from now? I'm sorry. It's the 20th. On the 20th, the inauguration, we're going to inaugurate the Environmental Programmers Network, so that we can expand our reach, not only through the Pacifica Network, but through the internet and everywhere else we can. Jack has a show, as do we, Myla Reeson and I, in KPFK, and Jack is much better syndicated than I am, but it's great that you're with us. And we're going to adjourn in about 5 minutes. Anybody else want to jump in? Please do. It's been another great call, amazing. In the wake of the yet another collapse on the part of the Democratic Party, another failure to defend our Constitution, as in the 14th Amendment, and our election process, as was shown. It's just really we don't have. If there was a Democratic Party, I guess we could oppose it, but there doesn't seem to be one at this point in time. Mike Hirsch, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sluggo. I want to underscore what you're saying about the importance of rooftop solar, because unlike having these huge solar farms miles and miles away from where anyone lives, and the logistical problems of getting that energy from there and the environmental damage that it does, having a rooftop solar does so many positive things, including literally empowering consumers to sell the energy back to the power company. And that was one of the things that Gavin Newsom decided to gut by making it so it would not be as financially beneficial as it should be. And it only makes sense, especially in some place like Los Angeles, where there's so much sunlight and the need for energy to keep homes cool enough for people to be able to live in, that you would have rooftop solar, and that the state and locality would do all it can to encourage that. And Gavin Newsom, for reasons of his own, has decided to betray that effort. And I think it's just so important to encourage rooftop solar and solar on top of buildings, all public buildings, schools, so on and so forth, because it would not only cut the need to use energy for air conditioning by making it less hot on hot days, but it would also turn the sun's rays into energy. And Sluggo, I'd love for you to give your views on that, especially solarizing the upcoming LA Olympics. And also, if you could, as a favor for me, show the logo on your shirt, because I think that's a historically significant thing.
This logo is from the first Woodstock, 1969. The stock answer, if you are asked if you were at Woodstock, a geezer like me, if you were asked if you were at the first Woodstock, the proper answer is I don't remember. But I was at the second Woodstock, and that shirt has two doves on it. This one has one, so it's from the original. I was with my kids at the museum for Woodstock in upstate New York not long ago, and I got this shirt. But I did speak at the second Woodstock, amazingly enough. I do remember it, and it is on film. So thank you for that, Mike. Thank you for that tribute to rooftop solar. And we also want to cover all the parking lots and the aqueducts in California with solar panels. We have a clear path to completely solarizing California, the United States, and the Earth. And what's standing in the way is a Democrat and Republican coalition against going to renewables. It can't be stated any other way. So we'll be dealing with that time and again. It's now 4:00. We still have 47 folks with us. We are going to adjourn. Jack, thank you for that report. Thank you, everybody, for the reports on the prisoners that we need Joe Biden to get out before the Trump administration takes power. This was a really important call in terms of all that. And once again, here we are on January 6th. 4 years ago, the Republicans were storming the White House, storming the Congress, as has been pointed out, to demand satisfaction in an election they lost. And here today, on January 6th, it took 36 minutes for the Democratic Party to roll over, make no mention whatsoever of the 14th Amendment, which has been violated, no mention, no questioning whatsoever of massive questions raised by Ray Lutz and Susan Pinchon and so many others about how this election was conducted, whether there were massive disenfranchisement, whether there were things that could go on that went on with the computers. At the very least, they should have been looked at. You know, whether you want to say the election was stolen or not, these issues absolutely required some kind of public attention. The Democratic Party just folded and did nothing, and here we are. And thank you, Jack, for your report on what we can expect in the governments. God help us in the next 4 years, and let's pray that these prisoners are freed in time. Okay, everybody, another great 2 hours. Thank you so much, Steve Caruso, for engineering, Mike Hirsch for co-convening, and please come back with us next week. We will have major issues to deal with, and it'll be the last time we meet before the inauguration of January 20th, and who knows what's going to happen going forward, but we have no choice but to shape it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in next week. No nukes, and God save the planet.
Big thanks to Marla and to Sluggo.
Thank you both. Thank you, everybody. Always enjoy being with you. Still have 40 people with us, and there we go. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you. No nukes, and see you in Solartopia.
Nukes.
Thank you. Thank you.